Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pikel with a little end of season review of the LCS regular season, and then we'll do a quick preview of the playoffs. So there's not much else to do but to do it. So let's take a look at the standings and the tier list that I have. So at the end of the season, we have Immortals, CLG, and Dignitas as the three worst teams, which is the same as what I had. Not only from a talent perspective. Well, I guess it is mostly from a talent perspective, but the talent and the results kind of lined up, and I've been pretty consistent with that, with my opinion on their talent. Then we have a pretty big gap between those teams and 100 Thieves. So 100 Thieves is 7th. Dignitas snuck into playoffs by beating CLG, who I have ranked pretty low in general. I think it's pretty insane what CLG have done with Pobelter and how they benched him and they brought him back and all that kind of stuff. They needed to win one of their final matches, and they brought in a backup not their backup, their future jungler and future mid laner supposedly. But we'll see how that actually ends up. Then the next three teams are Golden Guardians, EG, and FlyQuest. I think TSM is better than FlyQuest, and I think there is a difference in talent between those two teams. This weekend, TSM lost to Team Liquid but beat GG. But yeah, I think it is the top three teams and the next three teams, if I'm being honest. Then we have Team Liquid in first place, CLG in second, or C9 in second place. Even though TL has a better record, I still like C9 more than them going into playoffs because of the style that they play. I think that Team Liquid is going to potentially get into some spots where they are too passive. Not too passive. They would call it calculated. So they're not playing aggressively enough in the early game. Not to say that they can't. It's just that they haven't shown it as much recently on stage. And I prefer that play style. During the regular season, they went 1-1, which is fine. So I'm not changing my standings at this point. I think that this is basically right. So with this information, let's take a look at the first round of the playoffs. This starts on Thursday. We have we have one match Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is pretty cool. It's gonna suck for DraftKings. I don't even know if they're gonna put out slates for this kind of stuff. They'll probably try to do some kind of hybrid contests, but in terms of watching League of Legends, it'll be fun. So first up, we have TSM against Golden Guardians. So consulting the list, I have TSM up here, Golden Guardians down here. If I had to put a money line on it, let's see if they released anything. I would assume it's about minus 200 for TSM. Let's see. It's minus 300 for TSM. So minus 300 is 75%, minus 200, 67%. So they probably are shading the VIG onto that side. Because TSM is the more popular team, and they've looked better. So all of those reasons make me think that there's no value on either side. I would probably still... If I had to make a bet, I would bet on TSM. Golden Guardians. So let's look at it lane by lane. Broken Blade against Haunter, I prefer Broken Blade. Closer against Spica, it's pretty close. I think that the love for Closer's a little overblown, but he is a good player. And I do prefer him to Spica, just not as much as everybody else probably. Demonte and Bjergsen, I prefer Bjergsen, of course. And then FBI and Huhi against Doublelift and Treats. It's probably the opposite of the jungle, so it's probably Doublelift and Treats favored, but not as much as the public would say. But I do like TSM more, and I think that they will get that win. During the regular season, TSM beat Golden Guardians 2-0. So that's that. The next match is FlyQuest against Evil Geniuses, and everybody knows that I'm a big Evil Geniuses fan. So Evil Geniuses is plus 180, FlyQuest is minus 250. Last year, FlyQuest had a really good showing, or last split, FlyQuest had a really good showing in playoffs. And I think that I'm going to be on Evil Geniuses. I believe in the long-term talent, and it has to pay off sometime, right? So I've been on Evil Geniuses for weeks, if not months now. I can't get off at this point. That's just the way that I am. So we have Huni, Svenskeren, Golden Glue, Bang, and Zazel against Solo, Santorin, Power of Evil, Wild Turtle, and Ignar. In the top lane, I prefer Huni over Solo. Huni's very volatile, and that could either have them win the series easily, or it could have him play Lucian top and then just get steamrolled. But in this meta right now, I think that there is a lot of counterplay that you can kind of open yourself up to in the top lane with a player like Huni. So if FlyQuest goes for something like Ornn, Huni is the one who's more likely to punish that by outscaling it with a Camille or a Fiora or a Gangplank, something like that. So Huni, I like Huni a lot, probably too much. In the jungle, Santorin against Svenskeren. I think Santorin's a better player right now, and I think that Svenskeren has had some like horrible plays on stage, which are concerning. But I still think that in a very important playoffs match, I think Svenskeren can get it done, or at least keep it even. Santorin is more likely going to be playing carry champions like Nidalee. But Svenskeren, I believe, has played Kindred in the past. I know that he can play Graves, just doesn't seem as impactful as Santorin. So we can actually check that out. Graves, yes, set Volibear, Graves, set Volibear, set Volibear, Trundle. He can play this carry style jungle. They're getting away from it right now, and I'm not sure why. Evil Geniuses has had pretty bad drafting throughout the split. If they lose to FlyQuest, FlyQuest could win it straight up, and FlyQuest could also win because of drafting difference. So maybe I should like Evil Geniuses even less than I do. At 170, that'd be like 35%, and I think that's a pretty fair number. So I'm basically betting on the fact that I think long-term Evil Genius's talent, not long-term, right now Evil Genius's talent is better, and FlyQuest's form is better. So if Evil Geniuses can come to form, then I think it would be a 50-50, and at that point I'd have like a 15% edge. So I am on Evil Geniuses once again. And they're right next to each other in the tier list. So then the next round, there's like the whole selection thing. So like Team Liquid gets to pick who they want to face, and then C9 has to play the other team. So I assume that Team Liquid will pick the winner of FlyQuest EG, and C9 will have to play TSM. Which is interesting. I think TSM matches up kind of nice with C9. Not that they're favored, but they have a decent matchup. And then the losers bracket. So the losers bracket's going to play out first. So the loser... I'm not sure how the seeding gets redone. I think it's like the worst team has to play the higher remaining seed. But that's basically it for the LCS. Let's go to the LEC. Oh yeah, they're doing some weird stuff with this. Because it's not just the Okay, so this is a lot different. So the European system is pretty interesting. the winners bracket players go straight into the semifinals. So it's a hybrid between a bracket playoff and a juggernaut, or not a juggernaut, gauntlet. That's pretty funny. All right, so let's do the summer season. Okay, so Origin ended up in last place. That was pretty insane. Origin has a lot of problems with their team. I think Nuke Duck is probably done on Origin. Alphari is basically going to go to the people in charge of the roster and say, you either get rid of Jack Troll and Nuke Duck or I'm leaving. And they don't want to give up Alphari. Alphari is one of the better top laners in terms of upside in the LEC. I think he's a little overrated, but he's still one of the best players in the top lane. Vitality. I don't think Cabochard is really a long-term solution, and if you're Vitality, you're better off probably moving on from Cabochard soon. Skeens, I think, is there for the long run. Milica, Comp, and Labrov are probably there for a little bit longer. So Vitality is actually a team that Alphari would be nice on, because he would kind of be able to upgrade everybody else, but Alphari's probably in win now mode. Misfits, Dan, Razork, they had a good spring split. They had a very bad summer split overall. If you think about it, honestly, Misfits should probably be 11-7 right now. They had those heartbreaking losses. They had at least 3 losses where they completely threw away the game. And it's not to say like that you're good because you threw away those games, but think about 1 or 2 of those games going differently and they're in playoffs. And then I think that their talent, they'd be able to compete with a lot of these teams. They need to fix their support issues. I don't think that it's fair to blame all of their macro issues on the support. I think it's been kind of overblown and narrative driven, but they need to go into the split, in my opinion, with 1 support and 1 roster to kind of just play through the entire season. They're a little bit more macro oriented with Kabe, so you need to have a set roster so you can make decisions within the game that allow you to play the macro game correctly. And switching up the roster is something that is it does change a little bit how you can play the macro, because the support is supposed to be a big voice. Kabe, to me, seems like the kind of guy who's very talented, but is very passive aggressive and lets things boil up, and then like he probably freaks out. Because like I just remember from watching some of the TSM videos earlier in the split, like he just didn't seem to mesh well personality wise with the team, and he seems like a very serious player, which is not a bad thing at all. It's just that is the kind of player, and it kind of makes sense because of his playstyle as well, where he's very macro focused, low variance, wants to get into a spot 20 to 30 minutes into the game where he can carry. So he basically needs his team to not suck for the first 20 minutes of the game, and then he feels like he has a chance to win. Fabivin, I'm not sure how much Fabivin has proven himself in the last couple of years, but I think talent-wise, Fabivin is definitely a very talented player, and I think that this roster probably deserves another year to kind of figure it out. And that's what I expect is going to happen. XL, they had a pretty good split. Kryze is interesting. He can play carry top laners. He can play AP top laners. That's a good style to have in the LEC because it's a little different. Kadril, I think, is probably going to get replaced either this year or next year. Special's fine. Patrick's fine. Torre's fine. Schalke, I know people love Schalke right now. I think it's the whole Miracle Run thing is kind of silly. Like it required a lot of other teams playing very badly. And also, if you're a team that was in the playoffs and you could let Schalke get into playoffs, you probably want to let them get into playoffs because I just don't think that they're that good. Aduamne is a good player. He's been around for a long time, and he is the kind of player, when you talk about veterans, he is like the quintessential veteran. Like he has not only been around for a long time, but he still performs really well even when they're losing a majority of their games. Gilius, I'm glad he kind of was able to like resurrect his career like getting back into the pro spotlight and like having teams appreciate him for his playstyle, because he's always been more of an aggressive jungler, and like the LEC likes to think of itself as like a cerebral region. They're trying to be Korea, which is like just not going to happen. So he never really fit, but if he can be the shot caller, play the champions that he's good at, and then be aggressive in the early game, he has chances to be good. Abadage is a pretty good player. Inox, I liked Inox a lot last season, but now Neon is the starting AD carry, and then we have Dreams. So I think that I don't really see them going very far in playoffs. I don't think that they have a chance to win at all. But it is pretty impressive that they've kind of turned things around. I do like Dylan Falco. Like I've said before, I think Dylan's a good coach. I just don't believe in them going much further. Like if they go on some kind of crazy run in playoffs, then good job. But even after that point, I think that the way that their roster is constructed, there's not going to be the chance for much long-term success as constructed. So that's just something to take into consideration. SK, Genax, he's played very well this split. He's a converted mid laner, and I think that it just shows how good the mid lane pool is in general in League of Legends. Trick's a good player. He's been around for a long time. Good tank player. And he can play Nidalee. He can play these carry champions. He just doesn't do it very often because of the way that the meta is set up. So he kind of has a role within the team that he needs to fill. And it's been working out okay. Zazi's a pretty good player. Crownshot is a pretty good player. And Limit is a pretty good player. Crownshot gets talked about the most, but I think Zazie has probably outperformed expectations more than anybody else on SK, outside of Genax. They're an interesting team for playoffs, so I have to see who their matchup is. Fnatic, Whippo, Selfmade, Nemesis, Reckless, and Hylissang. I think Nemesis is kind of has been overrated for a long time. But I do think Fnatic will figure something out in the playoffs and be interesting. G2 is G2. Wonder Yonkos, Caps, Perks, and Mickey. I think they're probably the odds-on favorite to win the championship, or should be. So if you can find a line out there where G2 is not listed as the favorite, it's probably worth it. Arome, Shadow, Humanoid, Carzzy, and Kaiser. I do like Mad Lions a lot. The only way that I think G2 doesn't win the summer split is if Mad Lions figures out a way to beat them head-to-head. I think G2 has Fnatic's number. Fnatic's not going to be able to beat them. They're just like there's like a pretty big gap between G2 and Fnatic, which will probably make Rogue and Mad Lions seem relatively stronger or have a better chance to win. But I think that the gap exists there for them as well. And then Rogue, Finn, Inspired, Larson, Hansama, and Vander. I like Larson and I like Hansama a lot. I'm not convinced by Finn or Inspired, really. I know that some people think Inspired's one of the best junglers in Europe. I just don't. So there's that. I think G2 will be able to take advantage of them in the early game. G2 had a good record against them in the earlier parts of the season. Okay, so in the winners bracket we have Rogue against Fnatic. So Rogue against Fnatic. I mean, I'm sure Rogue is favored, but I don't think that you're crazy if you just pick Fnatic outright. The value's on Rogue probably. So the first match is on August 21st. What the hell? Wow, why? I mean, that stinks. So we have to wait a long time. So Schalke is favored over SK Gaming. I think just take SK Gaming. That seems pretty easy to me. G2 against Mad Lions, I will be taking G2. And then Rogue against Fnatic. I want to pick Fnatic, but at that line, I'd probably be on Rogue. And then the final look at the tiers. I still think it's the first 4 teams and then the second 6 teams. And you can kind of mess around with that order however you want. I'm not going to spend any time on that. LCK. 1 second. The LCK. They still have to get through their regular season, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to spend any time on that. But the LPL has finished. I will be doing the esports, ESPN Esports Global Power Rankings video later, or at least my reaction to it. So for playoffs, we have their like double gauntlet style, which is pretty cool. Not much is changing in my tier list. I can just save that for another time. But let's take a look at these teams. So Dominus, I think, is pretty bad. They're going to need to change some stuff. E-Star, they're pretty bad. They need a new mid laner. Rogue Warriors is pretty bad, but they have some interesting pieces there. OMG is interesting. They have a good top laner, a good jungler, a good mid laner. Well, they're relatively good. Like I could see OMG making spring playoffs next year with a couple upgrades in the bot lane. LNG, Flandre is not a long-term solution, so Chenlong 17 will probably be their starting top laner. Actually, I think Flandre is a lot younger than I think he is. I just don't like LNG. I really don't like Maple. Billy Gaming, Meteor was given a lot of credit for their success once he returned, but I just don't think that they're good enough to be competitive next spring unless they get some upgrades talent-wise. Vici Gaming, I think, is going to be my dark horse for next year. They are very interesting from a talent perspective. They could probably use an upgrade in the top lane. If Leon can figure it out, I think he has a chance to be pretty good. IG looked at him as the long-term solution for jungle. So the fact that they had a lot of faith in him, and now Koma has a lot of faith in him, that's pretty cool. Forge is really good. iBoy is considered very good. I don't know if I believe it or not. They're interesting. EDG, I think, basically could just run it back with Xiaoshang, Jai, Scout, Hope, and Mako, and they would have a chance next year. So I expect that to happen. In RNG, I think their top lane is not very good. I think Xiaolong Bao, Xiaohu, Gala, and Ming probably deserve a chance for an entire year together. FPX. Okay, now so let's just get into playoffs. So first up, we have V5 against FPX. This is happening 3 days from now. Very cool. So V5 and FPX. Well, we know their rosters, so I'm not sure why they did that. It'll be interesting to see what they do with their rosters going into these matches. I think that... How did they play against each other? They played each other a while ago. FPX and V5. FPX beat V5. Which does not surprise me. V5 wants to be FPX, kind of. Like, they play more of a slow macro style. I think FPX is just better at it. I know FPX just lost their match against Sunning, but they didn't have LWX. I think V5's season's over. So I think FPX probably wins that matchup and then takes on Sunning. So FPX, by losing to Sunning, has a better chance to get to the semifinals. Yeah, FPX needs to have a pretty good they need to have a pretty good playoff run in order to get to Worlds. This match will be very fun. I mean, I think FPX will make their way to play against Top Esports, most likely. LGD against World Elite, two very similar teams. I've had them ranked close together for a long time now. I think IG destroys either one of those teams. I think IG against JDG will be a fun match, stylistically. But that's basically it. So that's where we're at the end of the season. Hope you guys had a nice, profitable season overall. I know I did. It was touch and go for a little while there, but a good season nonetheless. So thanks for watching, and watch out for that ESPN Esports video.